Happy Saturday and welcome to Deal. I'm your host, Ed Clark, and it is a wonderful day to be alive because we could be in a different condition. So let's just start there. Thank you for tuning into the Deal. We got another exciting program this week. It is the first day of spring as well. Hopefully the weather is nice where you are and you can get out and in the coming weeks, things are turning around. As far as COVID, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about a lot of different issues, but I'm not even going to waste any time. I'm going to go ahead and bring in uh, the second banana. I'm the first banana. We're both bananas. This is Val Atkinson. Val, welcome back to the deal.
All right, hey, good to be here.
Well, Val, some days I'm like, okay, things are turning around, things look pretty good, economy's looking better, job situation better, COVID's better, and then stuff happens, crazy stuff happens, and among the crazier things that happen is a bunch of people were killed this week in Atlanta. There was some violence at a massage parlor. But before we talk about it, let's just play a video and then we'll talk about it on the other side. How about that?
The president travelled to Atlanta, a city still in shock, where Robert Long, a self-confessed sex addict, opened fire inside 3 massage parlours.
6 out of the 8 people killed on Tuesday night were of Asian descent. 7 were women.
The husband of one victim is calling for justice.
Solo dolor.
He left me with only pain, the killer who killed my wife.
So, Val, a lot of the talk has been about the fact that the violence was at an Asian massage parlor. But the reason why I played this clip is that he's Hispanic. So this violence has extended beyond that. And one of the things that seems clear to me, now I know the killer said that he had a sex addiction or whatever, but he went to an Asian massage parlor. There's been an increase in violence against Asians. Talk to me about why we're seeing this, and is this a result of the last guy that was sitting in the White House at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue?
Well, I think it's a result of us as a country never coming to grips with our true past, our true history. And as long as that stands the way it is, you're going to see guys like this and Dylan Ruth and other people commit heinous acts as they do. We've got to wrestle with and live up to who we really are, how we really got started, and stop covering everything up trying to be a great nation. Let's be real. That's what we've got to do. This whole thing got started, Ed, with genocide on the indigenous people here, the Native Americans. Then you bring in African Americans for slavery. Then you intern Japanese Americans during World War II, when some Japanese Americans were serving under the flag, under uniform in the military, doing crazy stuff, trying to help you win the war. And you in turn their family members because they are of Japanese descent. We have a long history of racism in America. And most of it, if not all of it, has been perpetrated by our white brethren. We've got to face that. These are facts. If you ever want to clean it up, laws ain't gonna do it by themselves. We've got to have some actions by people and some realizations and some things that say we ain't as great as we think we are. Some admissions before you can start trying to solve this problem, because you just can't find the one guy that committed this act or crime, punish him and think it's over. Somebody else commits another and you go find him. This is a systemic problem.
Yeah,
and the only way to stop it is to before it starts.
Yeah, as you were talking, I was thinking, they're gonna make a lot about this one particular person, and he's been caught. But the thing about it, I thought right away is they get caught, and taken into custody non-violently, it's an extension of the whole problem. Is that we see white men who commit this kind of violence. You saw them walk out of the Capitol on 1/6. You see, Dylan Roof got a trip to Burger King, uh, for killing the folks down at Mother Emanuel. Uh, when white men do these kind of crimes, we don't want to call it terrorism, and it clearly is. And it harkens back to all those pictures you see of lynchings, of people in the crowd, normal people, normal looking people standing around ogling at a dead black person hanging from a tree as if it's innocuous, right? It's part of our history. And my concern is that, we see violence against Asian folks or Hispanic folks or whatever. Uh, One of the things that I don't think we've done well enough is form coalitions across those groups with African Americans, right? There has been tension between blacks and Asians, especially in places like LA. Used to spend a lot of time in LA. The Korean community uh, owned a lot of shops in South Central LA, and there was a lot of tension. What do you say about trying to form coalitions with some of the other minority groups so that you turn that into a working majority with the white people who want to come along and have a better society?
That's always, I hope that can happen. The question, Ed, in my mind, is how. How do you do that? How do you hold out the olive branch to talk about white folks who want to come over and make this a better society and that kind of thing, while you still have the Dylan Roos and people like that committing these crazy acts? And we can't wait that way. There's got to be some big move on the part of what I call good white folks. There's got to be some big move on their part to root out from their culture, because they're the one living next door to these people. And they're the one who's got to take the lead to say, you're not welcome in my community. They got to do to them what those type of people are doing to everybody else. They've got to make it uncomfortable for those people to be in America calling themselves American. They've got to do it. We can't. We've taken the baton and we've run with it. We've run our leg, and we're passing it on now back to what we call the good white folks. They've got to pick up this baton and move forward with it.
Yeah, a lot of what we've dealt with in America over the 250 odd years that we've been constituted like we have is that it's largely been a black and white problem, right? Of course, the Native Americans, they just killed them off, so that wasn't much of a problem, right? They just eliminated it. It was genocide. They didn't kill the black folks because they needed us to do the work. And then after the slavery question was kind of resolved, it's always been an issue about black folks and white folks. But obviously, over the last quarter century, there's another group in the mix. I want to move a little bit further, is the Hispanic folks, right? So one thing that's also happening, Val, is that at the border, there are a lot of people showing up, and the numbers have increased. And I think that's probably due to the fact that there's been some easing of restrictions in Mexico over COVID-19. So there's more people coming from Central America coming into the United States. So they're at the border. There's tons of people at the border. And the Republicans want Joe Biden to call it a crisis. And they want him to actually say the word crisis as if it makes a difference. And a lot of Republicans ran down to the border to try to prove that Joe Biden was horrible and kids are in cages or whatever, when they said nothing at all about it when Donald Trump was president. What does Joe Biden do to try to work himself into a better position on this border situation now? Whether you call it a crisis or not, there are a lot of children at the border. what do we do about that? And then I guess the follow-on question is, a lot of the Republicans are saying, you see, we need to do something about it because these people are going to come here and take your job, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But Val, my contention is I don't hire illegal immigrants. White business owners hire illegal immigrants. White business owners who tend to be Republican hire illegal immigrants. So first question is, what does Joe Biden do quickly? And then what happens in the larger picture, to try to explain why these people end up showing up in America in the first place?
Well, I'll tell you one of the first things he doesn't do, don't react to Republicans. This is not some type of math problem or whatever. It takes careful thinking, whatever his strategy is going to be. But he's got to understand, and I think he does, that the Republicans are inside of the country. They're in the hull, inside the hull, to go back to a matrix type of an analogy. They're sentinels inside the hull, and they're eating it away. And we've got to look at this problem from that advantage point. You can't negotiate and deal with and strategize on these people who are part of the country and are trying to tear it apart. They're not trying to build a different country. They're not trying to say that the one they want to build is better than the one we have now, and then let the people choose. They are not about that. So you can't be about that either. They're trying to destroy what we have now, hopefully, so that when it's rebuilt, they can have what they want. That's the same strategy that the Confederacy had. They knew they couldn't beat or defeat the Union, but what they wanted to do was to make it so bad that the people then inside would say, I've had enough of this fight. Let's stop it. And foreign countries would say, hey, you guys got to stop this. You're hurting the world economy. Let's just stop it right now and negotiate and let the South go and the North do your piece. That's what Republicans are hoping for now. I can imagine Ed, Jeff Davis, and Alexander Stevenson, who were the president and vice president of the Confederacy, are having a grave talk right now. And they're saying, why didn't we think of this? Why did we have to go to war? All we had to do is stay inside the government and destroy it from within. Just be obstinate about everything. Don't let anything pass. Make sure everything is run amok until they get so frustrated that they let us go.
Yeah.
They get so frustrated that they provide an opportunity for us to do what we want by ourselves. We've got to look at things in that light, Ed, because I'm saying this, I'm preaching that, because I don't think we are, not at our power levels, because we still hold on to the hope that we can get these Republicans like Senator Johnson and all of the Trumpers and all of these people to wake up one morning and say, oh, I never looked at it that way. They have a point.
Mm-hmm.
Let's sit down and talk about it. As long as Democrats think that that's still a possibility, that's where they're going to spend all their time and energy trying to make that happen. And I'm saying you're wasting your time. These sentinels that's gotten inside of the hub, they cannot hear, they cannot see. So all your language and your talking and your strategizing doesn't impact them at all. Mm-hmm. They got one goal, that's to destroy the ship from within.
Yep, and they're doing a good job of it. I tell you, Kevin McCarthy and those folks, that they are never going to come to the side of reason. They didn't want to do anything around, the COVID relief, and despite the fact that we're making some progress. So I do want to shift gears. I don't want to get too far down the road though, because we're going to be coming up on a break in a minute. But Val, so think about this before we go to the break. I want to talk about COVID. I want to talk about where we are with the vaccines. I want to talk about why there's still some reluctance of people to take the vaccine. You're fully vaccinated. I've already had my first shot last week, so I'm coming up on a week. So I had a little bit of soreness in my arm where I got the vaccination. After a couple of days, it had worn off. I guess I was a little sleepy, a little groggy the first day. But other than that, I've been fine. But I still hear these stories about people not wanting to take the vaccine, and where that's going to lead us if we don't, because there has been a spike in increase in the number of deaths in some states where they've done some of this opening up. So we'll talk about that when we come back. In addition to that, we want to talk about the new CDC guidelines for schools, because schools are starting to open back up. So we're going to take a break. We'll be back in a minute, and we're going to talk about COVID and a lot of other stuff. Stay right there.
That ain't the word.
Our fight against coronavirus isn't over. Let's wear face masks in public, stay 6 feet or more from others, follow state and local guidelines, and wash our hands frequently. Let's move forward together. Learn more at coronavirus.gov.
This morning, less than 60 days since taking office, President Biden says the country is reaching a major milestone, 100 million vaccine doses and counting.
Behind these 100 million shots are millions of lives changed when people receive that dose of hope.
And welcome back to the deal. I'm your host, Ed Clark. That's Val Atkinson. And that was the President of the United States, Joe Biden, and making the announcement that he had hit the 1 million milestone goal. Val, when he said that, only about a month and a half ago, everybody was like, what? Because at the time, there had only been a couple of million people vaccinated over several months with the former president's administration. And there was no national plan, and states, were not receiving a vaccine. And now you can go to Walgreens or Safeway or wherever and get a shot. Tell us about where you think we are with the vaccine at 100 million shots given out. Probably a quarter of people fully vaccinated. Are you confident now? You feel better about things now?
Well, first of all, let me go back and say that I understand how you could have gotten me and the president just confused just a little bit, and you had to clarify that up. There's only 10 days difference between our birthdays. He's the older guy. He's 10 days older than me, but saying that we both are November birthmark, born in 1942, and I was born on the 30th, and he was on the 20th. He's 10 days older than me, so he's an old man. But that aside, I'll say that the 100 million promise that he made on vaccinations in his first 100 days, I honestly thought that it was a little ambitious when he first rolled that out. And I said, well, why don't you make it 50, instead of 100 million? But he accomplished that early. And I think it's because you got cooperation now with this administration, between the administration and the states, between the administration, the states, and the private sector. And we're getting information out to people without an ulterior motive to see what's good for the president or what makes him look good, and hide all of the information that doesn't make him look good. Once that happened, I think it became much easier to motivate people to participate. But I think the other thing can't go missing, Ed, is shows like yours here, like our show, The Deal, which encourage people to get out and participate. And I think it helped. You had your shot. I've been fully vaccinated. It's been over 2 weeks now since I've had my second shot. And I feel fine. And I know you do too. It's going to be difficult to get some people, all of the people, vaccinated. So we still got to do our part in terms of encouraging all of those people that are in our circles, in our work circles, in our families, in our social circles, to do what's right and get it done. I think we're doing a great job. I really do, because I hear people talking all the time, and they're even asking me, they're saying, well, I've had my first shot, Val, where are you? Where are you and your family? Everybody in your family doing fine? Everybody had their shots? And I like that. And that's where we need to go. If we keep that up, I think we have a good chance of beating this thing.
Yeah, but I do still worry, because it was really easy for me, because I'm on the computer all the time. And I took my opportunity. I thought about it. I said, well, if I get on late at night, I can probably find an appointment if I'm the first one to check, right? So I found an appointment really quick. A couple of days later, I was in there, had the shot, walked in, walked out 17 minutes later, because the shot took 10 seconds. I waited a couple minutes and then I had to wait 15 minutes after, make sure I felt okay. And when I looked around the location that I went to, there weren't a whole bunch of me in there. There were folks that looked like us. And so I'm still concerned about how we distribute healthcare in the United States. I guess that's a larger question, and we'll need to get some doctors on here to talk about this at some point. I think the healthcare system is still broken in the United States, right? The fact that we have to depend on places like Safeway and Walmart and Walgreens and CVS to do distribution is problematic to me. I think that's crazy, to tell you the truth. I think what we should do is there should be public health facilities in every community that people could go to. There should have been mass vaccination events. I saw a story a couple days ago. It was about Dr. Anthony Fauci, and it was about his life. And he talked about there was a need to vaccinate everybody in New York City in the 50s. I can't remember what it was, if it was polio or whatever. They vaccinated 6 million people in 2 weeks. The whole city of New York, everybody just went to public health facilities. This was in the 50s. And we can't seem to do it now, Val. Have we gotten to the point where everything is about money? I mean, because CVS and Walgreens and all those people are being remunerated in some kind of way. They're not doing this out of altruism. There's money involved. So the federal government, my tax dollars, yours too, are going to prop up this system. What do you think about the public health aspect of this? Could that be better?
Oh, absolutely. I still hold our hope that one day we'll have a single payer healthcare system here in the United States of America. We're the only industrialized country on the planet that doesn't have a single payer system. And if it's good for everybody else, I don't think that we should be without. And I think the answer to your first question about, is it about money? Yes. I mean, that is first and foremost what the United States of America is about. People talk about justice and liberty and freedom and democracy, but, let's talk about predatory capitalism. That's what we're really, really about. Everything else is a distant second to that. So yes, we're about money. Yes, we need a single payer healthcare system. And yes, it would help in times like this, where we're trying to fight a virus that has no respect for party affiliation or political lines drawn on a map. So we need a system that affects and does well by everybody all the time.
Yeah, right. And then the other part of this, Val, is that the guidelines from the CDC about school openings and so on and so forth have come out. I think I have something about
The
what the new
CDC said that
guidelines are.
students could.
Let's see if we can, and then we'll talk about school reopenings on the other side of this.
The CDC said that students could safely sit 3 feet apart rather than 6 feet if they are wearing masks. It recommended keeping students 6 feet apart in common areas like the gym or the lunchroom. And they say teachers should keep a 6-foot distance.
Those are the new guidelines from the CDC, Val. In there's been a lot of pressure to open schools up, but there's still been outbreaks of COVID at schools. Even here in North Carolina, over the last week, there were a couple of schools where there were clusters, but in some other states where they have not been as effective at beating back the virus as we have here in North Carolina, there have also been clusters. You If you were a parent, had kids school age now, well, how would you feel about sending your child to school with the new CDC guidelines? I mean, I know we're not doctors; we only play one on this program. But what do you feel about these new CDC guidelines?
Well, let me speak for my daughter, which almost makes me in that position live, because she has a 9-year-old and an 8-year-old. And she has them still at home. She lives in Columbia, Maryland, and she has not sent them back to school. She's fortunate that she has a job that allows her to work 100% from home, and it hasn't had any negative impact on the family. So she has to figure that out, how she does her work at home, tutor the kids, and do all of the other things that moms do. But she has not sent them back because she doesn't feel very comfortable sending them back based on the guidelines that are set forth now. Now, she may change her mind, and once the semester is over, she'll send them back later. But I think there are a lot of people still that way. I think the new CDC guidelines removing the social distancing from 6 feet to 3 feet is going to do a couple of things. First of all, it allows more people to be in the classroom, freeing up more parents to go back to work, having a positive impact on the economy. But also, I think it's going to allow for more people to become susceptible. We're finding out in some of these variants that are going around that kids too are passers of the virus. We thought that they were not susceptible or as susceptible as adults were, and we're finding out now that they are. So we have to be very, very careful that we are not creating an issue here where we're packing more kids in. We're doubling the amount of kids that can be in a classroom now when you remove the limit from 6 to 3 feet. You're doubling how many kids can be there. And we just hope that works out. But what has got to happen, parents and grandparents and friends and neighbors have got to go and get vaccinated. That's what we started this conversation about. If we get vaccinated in large numbers, we create a greater opportunity for herd immunity. And that will in turn have an impact on the kids' health. So that's what we can do. You can't be in the classroom holding their hands and telling them what to do and what not to do. So do what you can do. Go get vaccinated yourself. That's the best advice I got.
Yeah, definitely. People have got to get vaccinated. I just hate every time I see those stories about vaccine hesitancy, and then focus a lot on the African American community as if we're the only ones. I think the fact is most of the things that I've seen come out lately in terms of polls about people who are reluctant to get it, a lot of them are white Republican men who are also the people who were the super spreaders in this. And just before we came on, Val, I saw a story about Mar-a-Lago, the president's club, having to shut down yesterday because of a COVID outbreak at Mar-a-Lago, which, I mean, I don't want anybody to be sick, but clearly there have been some people who have flaunted this, who have made it worse. The president, the former president, or the guy who played the president in the last 4 years, did nothing around COVID. Uh, One other thing before we run out of time in this segment, I don't know if you saw Senator Rand Paul grilling Dr. Anthony Fauci during a hearing this week, and Rand Paul's a doctor, and he tried to make fun of Dr. Fauci still wearing a mask even after being fully vaccinated. Where does this come from with the Republicans? What are they trying to prove? This is why I want all Black folks to make sure they get vaccinated, and brown people, because if they don't want to do it and they die, then they'll have to explain to their constituents, the ones they influence not to get vaccinated, that it was a good idea. I don't want to ever say that Val Atkinson and Ed Clark never encouraged people to get vaccinated, because I want to save lives. And particularly for our folks, there's no reason not to get it. But what is this with Rand Paul and people like him in making fun and then basically harassing Dr. Fauci during the hearing?
It was unthinkable. I never thought I'd heard that from Rand Paul because of his professional identification. Like you said, he's a medical doctor. But whether you be Libertarian Party or Republican Party, it doesn't matter. If you are an ultra conservative, you fall in the same category of fear that you're losing hold on your country. And that's the biggest impetus for these people doing things that we say otherwise, that they're crazy for doing these kinds of things. That fear is there, Ed. They fear that they're losing their country. The demographers that came out with this whole piece about whites no longer being the sole majority come the year 2042, that scared the bejesus out of those folks. And that was followed up by the election of Barack Obama twice, the election and re-election, and the nomination of Hillary Clinton by the largest party, the Democratic Party, nominated a woman. They just knew they were losing it. So these are the kinds of things that they do. They come up with all kinds of crazy stuff that are outside the realm of practicality, logic, and reason. It doesn't make sense. Another way of saying it doesn't make sense what they do. And we'll never figure out why. It just doesn't make sense. They're afraid of losing control of their culture.
And I'm glad you bring that up, Val, because we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about how they're trying to hang on to power. And one way is voter suppression. So our big topic today is voter suppression. So as always, Val, Johnny on the spot. We're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about voter suppression, what they're trying to do, and how they're trying to maintain and hold on to power. So stay right there. We'll be right back in a minute.
We don't want to miss an opportunity in our community to protect ourselves, especially since our community is disproportionately affected in a negative way right now.
And we've got to encourage those in our community to realize that we've got to look forward and we've got to find ways to be much more trusting and engaging and recognize the importance of the vaccine in helping us defeat this incredible virus.
And actually, I've been dreading the little pinch of the needle. I didn't even hurt or didn't even feel it. This is just a win-win-win. And, I would encourage everyone to take advantage of it. It doesn't take a lot of time or effort, and it doesn't even hurt.
You have a spot, get the shot. Because that's what Aggies
do. Eugene Talmadge, former governor of our state, had famously declared, "The South loves the Negro in his place, but his place is at the back door." When once asked how he and his supporters might keep black people away from the polls, he picked up a scrap of paper and wrote a single word on it: pistols.
Wow, that's Senator Warnock from Georgia, who was talking about ways that folks in the South have suppressed votes in the past, Val, and usually it was by violence, right? You threaten people, the Klan, the White Citizens Council, or just ordinary folks feeling like they could lynch Black people at will. And before we came on this morning, we talked about the images, the famous images of lynched Black folks, where everybody in town, all the white people in town would stand around as if they were going to a picnic, that it didn't mean anything to them. Black lives did not matter. And so you could intimidate Black people into not voting. And then since they can't do that anymore, Val, now they've moved to new means, right? These are folks in suits in legislatures across the country, not just in the South, but primarily. And in Georgia, where Senator Warnock is from, they have tried to pass some very draconian voting rules. Among them, that you can't pass out water to somebody standing in line. That could be a felony. Trying to prevent voting on Sunday. You don't want vote souls to the polls because you don't want people to get on the church bus and being taken down, old ladies to be helped with voting. As we ended the last segment, we talked about this fear that many white people have, that they are losing control of the culture and they have to hold on to power by any means. And power in the United States means that you're in control of some governor's mansion, some legislature, and the Congress and Senate and the Supreme Court. They've managed to hold on to the Supreme Court. Talk to me about what's going on in Georgia and around the country in these voter suppression efforts and whether or not you think they'll succeed.
Well, they've thrown a lot of things up against the wall, Ed, and now they're trying to see what sticks. And that's why they put in crazy stuff like passing out water and food in voting lines to be illegal. They know that's not going to pass, but they always put in a few things that are emotional, that are very raw, so that when it comes time to negotiations, they can say, okay, we'll take this out, but we got to leave those other 4 or 5 in or whatever. So, and they know it's crazy, but they've lost Stacey Abrams, and let me bring her name in here. They lost what they thought they never would lose. That is a presidential election in Georgia and 2 runoffs. They never thought that would happen because of the phenotypical makeup of the population, which is more white than Black. But otherwise, they always thought they had a hold on the voting process. And now they see that people like Stacey Abrams are coming up with new ideas, new strategies that give progressives and liberals and people of color the same opportunity as white folks. And they know right now, based on the numbers, that it's going to be very, very difficult for them to win a national and some statewide races with the changing in demographics coming up in the future. So they know that the only way they can win is change the rules. So they want to change these rules to make it more difficult for people that traditionally vote against them to vote. It's the same thing that we talk about when we discuss gerrymandering. Has the same effect of lawmakers choosing voters as opposed to voters choosing their lawmakers. And that's what they want. They want to go in and make it more difficult by moving precincts around, determining when precincts can be open, having an impact on the whole mail-in process, souls to the polls, you name it, anything involving voters. If they can single out a methodology that people of color use more than whites, they want to thwart that. They want to stop that because they know that's the only way they're going to win key elections in the future.
Yeah, you're absolutely spot on there. Again, I'm always talking about what my fears are. One of my fears is that a lot of times young people who we absolutely need a lot of times to carry us over may only vote in cycles. They'll vote at presidential elections, for example. So I think that had a big influence over the success of Joe Biden and also Warnock and Ossoff in Georgia. How do you keep those people though participating in those off-year elections? I know we talk about it all the time. We talk about voting every single year. That there's no such thing as an off-year election. To me, is that every year there's something to vote for. There's either municipal elections, which have the most impact on you. So in your community, if you got a dog catcher that's running, you could conceivably vote for it. You should be out voting for it. What becomes then the Democratic Party's responsibility for holding on to those voters and keeping those voters engaged, other than always being afraid of what the Republicans are going to do? Have the Democrats said enough about what they have to offer to people to keep them coming and participating? Have they failed? Has the Democratic Party failed in a coherent message, in your opinion?
I don't think so, Ed. I really don't, because I just don't think that there's a groundswell of people sitting back with a ledger and a pencil taking notes about what the Democrats are going to do about X and what they've done about Y, whether they fulfill that or not, and what are they saying. I think politicians make a big mistake when they think that that's the way voters are. Voters, unfortunately, are very emotional. And if there's something going on at the poll that you can rile their emotion, if you can bring up their ire about something or somebody, if you can tell them that you need to change this policy or this phase of their life, you need to get over this, that, or the other. And you can invoke names like Donald Trump, as we did with George W. Bush and a lot of other people. But I don't think that there is a groundswell of people out there that are saying, well, you didn't deliver on that, and you did deliver a little bit on that, but you let 2/3 of it go by, and I don't think you did this. I don't think there's enough of those out there to make a difference. And I think politicians make a big mistake when they try to appeal to these folks that that's going to be the differences. I heard one little analogy that I want to leave with our listening and viewing audience is that, we had envisioned that the American economy would be like a football with a large middle and two smaller ends, with the rich folks on one end and the not so rich folks on the other, but a large middle. Instead, it resembles now a bow tie, with the middle class being squeezed out and a whole lot of rich folks, but a whole lot of poor folks too. And we need to get back to the football.
Yeah.
We got to get back to the football. And if we do that, we solve all of these other issues that we're trying to talk about, to give people reason to vote for this, that, or the other. Get back to moving the needle back toward the football from the bow tie, and you don't have to sell them on all these crazy things every time an election comes up.
Right. Yeah. You're always trying to find the one issue that'll move people. Let's talk about, while we're here though, how we got to this point. You're a real good student of history and a teacher of history. There's been a number of decisions that have chipped away at the Voting Rights Act, and so now one of the things that Senator Warnock was talking about the other day is this John Lewis Voting Rights Act. Trying to put some of the protections back in. Can you talk about some of the protections that we've lost with this current Supreme Court, in which we're in danger of losing even more. Again, it's a 6-3 court. All bets are off on whether or not, Clarence Thomas. We can't count on him, and John Roberts is kind of wishy-washy, and he was the one that really put the death nail with the Shelby decision. So, talk to me about what the court looks like in terms of how afraid should we be?
We should be very concerned, and we should be about the business of trying to convince whoever will listen that we need to get rid of the filibuster. There's no way you're going to get the John Lewis piece or the George Floyd piece passed through both houses without getting rid of the filibuster. We can talk about that right now. But getting back to your first part of your question, those parts of the Civil Rights Bill, that's Civil Rights Act, that's really being challenged now. They had a two-pronged attack on us, Ed. In the frontal attack, they had people taking a look at things called Citizens United, so they could attack the financial part of it. Then there was a piece that you just talked about, the Shelby v. Holder decision by the Supreme Court, which actually destroyed the 1965 Voting Rights Act, because it said that Section 4 of that act was unconstitutional. Section 4 determined who comes under the auspices of the act itself. And if that cannot be determined, then the section that has the teeth in it, Section 5, can't be implemented. So you don't have anything, okay? So Shelby v. Holder really tore down the 1965 Voting Rights Act. Then the third leg of this trilogy was Ruco v. Common Cause. That's a case that started right here in North Carolina, which it was about gerrymandering. And the end result, the Supreme Court decided that it's okay to involve yourself in extreme gerrymandering as long as it's not racially based. And if you put Citizens United along with Shelby v. Holder, along with Ruco v. Common Cause, they were doing that out front, while in the rear and around the right flank, what Mitch McConnell was doing was conservatizing, that's my own word. He was conservatizing the federal courts, all three branches, the district court, the Court of Appeals, and the Supreme Court. He made sure nothing but conservatives got on there. And these are lifetime appointments. So you can't elect a new congressman or a new president and affect what Mitch McConnell has done to the courts. You've got to have the gonads, you've got to have the courage to go in and make some meaningful changes, such as the number of justices that are appointed to the courts. And you got to go ask Congress to go in and make it so that the terms are changed for the Supreme Court, that there are term limits, 8 years, 4 years, whatever it takes, but not life appointments. And those are the kind of things you got to do, because they've hit a home run with the court decisions that they've passed and the things that they've done. They've hit a home run, and we have got to get rid of the filibuster to even get in the ring to fight with them.
And I want you to talk about the filibuster, because with that, then they can just gum up the works and effectively allow Mitch McConnell to still be the leader of the Senate. It doesn't matter what Chuck Schumer wants to do if any senator on the Republican side could get up and gum up the works and not allow a bill to be considered. Can you explain the filibuster again? I hate to always pull on your teacher credentials here, but I think one of the things that I know not enough people know what these terms mean. They hear it on TV, and then they say, well, I support the filibuster because my senator supports it. But do they even know what it is? What is the filibuster?
Most of them don't know it. The filibuster, the enabling legislation, we like to use that term in political science. The enabling legislation that supports and allows the filibuster is Senate Rule 22. And basically what it says is that you're going to have 3/5 of the senators to bring about cloture. That means that senators can talk as long as they wish, unless there is a vote to say we're going to end discussion on that, bring about cloture. But it can't be a majority vote to end cloture. It's got to be 3/5. You need 60. You need 60 senators to bring about cloture. But that is not a law. That is a Senate rule. So if it's just a Senate rule, the Senate can change that rule. And it's up to the Senate that's in power to change it. It can be changed back the other way by when another Senate takes office, of course, when another Congress is sworn in. But right now, you've got to deal with the hand that you've been dealt. And now you have 50 Democratic senators. If you weren't going to do this, why fight and spend all this money and time to get Warnock and Ossoff elected so that you could have 50 senators? You didn't need to do that if you're not going to take advantage of having a Democratic vice president that could be the tiebreaker. Why do all of that if you're not going to use it? And the Democrats need to get some heart, some courage, and go in there and pass to revise Senate Bill 22, get rid of the filibuster so that everything can be passed on a majority vote. Some of the things can be done without 3/5 of the Senate, but it has to be on the reconciliation. And that means if it involves a revenue, if it involves any type of spending or the debt ceiling, then you can categorize that as a part of reconciliation, and you don't need the 3/5 vote to bring about cloture. You can do it with the majority vote. So I'm saying Democrats have got to get some gonads here and go in and do what we gave you the right to do. Our vote was so you can go in and do these things and not be mealy mouth and milquetoast and playing games with Republicans. Because I'm going to tell you, if you don't do something about the filibuster, Ed, none of these pie in the sky bills and issues that we talk about has a chance in hell of passing. Yeah. Because any one of the 50 Republican senators can just phone it in and say, hey, I object to that. I'm going to filibuster. I'll see you Monday or Tuesday. I'm going to Mar-a-Lago.
Well, Lindsey Graham all but said that that's what he was going to do, especially on voting rights. He said it was going to pass over his dead body, essentially. So, right. Well, you know, that's a good place for us to wrap up our discussion. We dealt with a lot today, like we always do. And but before we get completely out of here, what are you reading right now? I see another book behind you there. Anything new that you're reading that we need to know about?
It's not new. It's my second book. I'm promoting that because I have been getting a lot of calls from publishers. They want to republish that again because it's very relevant now. There are some things in there that they want to use. So I'm going to get that out again. It's entitled Distractions, Distortions, Deceptions, and Outright Lies. And it is talking about how these things are used to keep the South red, to keep oligarchs and plutocrats in power, and to muck up the works. And it's a good book.
Yeah, it is. And I did it on purpose because I wanted you to talk about it. And where can people go to get it?
Amazon, Traffic Publishing Company, Barnes and Noble. You can call me.
Yeah, we'll also put a link on the page too, Val, in the description for today's show. because again, the reason why Val's on here, folks, is because he knows what he's talking about, and it helps us better understand these issues. Like I said, Val, there's just so much to cover. We covered a lot of ground today. Everything from violence against Asians to immigration to the COVID to voting rights and the filibuster, and we always have a packed show. What do we have to look forward to in the coming week?
Well, what we've got to look forward to in the coming week, it is another edition of Connections, which will be aired tomorrow. Our show is aired at 8 o'clock on Sunday mornings of Foxy 107, 104, Radio 1 station, Urban 1 affiliated. So tune us in. Ed Clark and I are there, and we'll be talking about things just like we do here on the deal. Foxy 107, 104 at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning.
Yeah, good deal, Val. Well, in the meantime, I need for people to go out, enjoy the spring, get a shot, damn it, get a shot, get it vaccinated. I want to be able to see my grandkids. I want to be able to, maybe go out and have a beer or something. I don't know. I'm certainly not all that excited about watching the basketball tournament. The Tar Heels let me down, but that's okay. We got next year. But in the meantime, go out to the deal with edclark.com. Look up Val's book. We'll have a link for that. And go do some good for somebody today. That's what we always end with here. So we'll see you next week. You've been watching The Deal. Have a good Saturday.